Ms. Norma.
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to some of you. Welcome to a special edition of my program, Issues and Answers. You are listening to the WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. You can watch us live on your smart TV by going to YouTube and clicking in WCEG Network. My name is Norman A. Carter Jr., your show host for this special edition of Issues and Answers. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram, you can find us at WCEG underscore talk underscore radio, and also at WCEG Network. Small disclaimer here, the opinions that you hear today are my own and the opinions of our guests and not the opinions of the WCEG network. Thank you in advance for your support. We have today a very, very special and important guest from the Center for Voter Information, Ms. Marissa McBride. Welcome to Issues and Answers on the WCEG Talk Radio Network.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're just glad to have you at such an opportune time and dealing with a issue that is in the forefront of not only Georgia but America.
Yeah.
And you have so much information to impart to us in such a short time about absentee ballot applications, I believe.
hmm
And I'd just like for you to speak on that a little bit, please, or a lot.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. Again, thanks for having me. You're right. In this moment with COVID, ravaging the nation, we're still dealing with a pandemic. Voting is really important, especially as you see what's happening in places like Kenosha and across the country in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and making sure that people's voices are just heard. And absentee voting is one of the things that we've been promoting at our organization for many years. We want to make sure that voting is safe, secure, and easy. We want to give people the opportunity to spend time with their ballot, but also just know that these tools are accessible. So if you don't want to wait in line, for hours on end to vote in person, requesting an absentee ballot and voting by mail is your right. And we want to make sure that as many people as possible are exercising their right to vote and doing it in a way that works for their lives.
Okay, very good. I see that you've sent out something like 2.2 billion absentee ballot applications.
Yes, in Georgia. Yes, we've
Yeah.
2.2 million absentee ballot requests, and we focus on a community that we call the Rising American Electorate. So
hmm
that's unmarried women, people of color, and young voters across the state. Those are typically the people who are lower information voters or maybe new to voting in general. So we try to make it as easy as possible and bring the process to them by mailing them a request form.
I wanted to emphasize the application portion of it because there's some confusion out there in the public. So could you explain how that works, please?
Sure. So we send out a vote by mail application. You fill it out and return it to the appropriate elections official. And once you've filled out and sent back the application, you will then receive a ballot. It'll be mailed to you, and then you can either put it back in the mail or drop it into a drop box or deliver it in person. But the application is the first step to being able to vote by mail.
Fantastic. And is this effort going throughout the country? We know that you're working in Georgia, but
Yes.
and
Um,
were you active during the primary election, during
oh,
the early
absolutely.
primary? And
Yes.
how did that work out? Did you have any glitches or any call-ins about issues people may have had?
Right. I think, Georgia, the primary was a complicated one. You had a Secretary of State who wasn't particularly interested in utilizing vote by mail, and the landscape was quite dynamic in terms of everything changing from voting in person to voting absentee and new registrants. But we ran a vote by mail program ahead of the primaries just to ensure as many people as possible were ready. One of the things we've also learned that people who vote in primaries are much more likely to vote in a general election. So we tried to
Right.
create as much voter education and engagement early on so that people are more likely and prepared to vote in November. The program has been successful. We've had a ton of signups in Georgia, and there is just I mean, there's an appetite for absentee voting, especially given what's going on around the country.
I wanted to display something. I hope I'm not out of line, but looking forward towards some people who get mail from places that I don't know who this person is,
Mm-hmm.
just to show them what the return address looks like.
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah, and this is what it looks like, and this is not junk mail. This is very important. See, it has my name on it and all that sort of stuff. Uh, but it's very, very important that you open it, look at it, read it, understand it, and we're trying to provide you with some information that it's going to make the voting process easier for everyone. Everyone. If you read and heed, uh, could you tell us some more about your organization? A little bit more.
Sure. So we were founded in 2004. When we were first founded, our focus was on unmarried women. We recognized that marital status was determinative of whether somebody registers and turns out to vote. We expanded our program, and so we include the Rising American Electorate. We run large-scale, primarily mail-based voter registration, vote by mail, and turnout campaigns. We also have some digital components to our work. Our entire goal is really bringing democracy to people and making it easier for them to register and have their voices heard.
One of the things I like to emphasize, and maybe you can expound on it a little bit, is about people checking their registration early and not waiting until the last minute, particularly if they haven't voted in a while.
Oh, absolutely. We have an easy tool on our website, actually, that you can go to and check your registration status. Often, if you move, you need to re-register. And I think, when you're going through the process of moving, it's not necessarily top of mind. But moving, or if you haven't been an active voter recently, there are a number of purges across the country. So you want to make sure that you're actually registered so that you can, one, fill out a vote by mail application and vote absentee. But if you want to vote in person, that you're already prepared. The deadlines vary, state to state. So checking early and making sure that you are an active registrant is really important.
And how about identification if you do elect to vote in person?
Yes, I mean, I think a lot of the DMVs are closed, and that's where most folks actually end up registering. But yeah, making sure that you have your ID with you just makes the process much easier. You don't have to worry about being hassled, and you'll ensure that your vote is counted.
I think it's important too, and again, please jump in at any time. When filling out these applications and actually your ballot, that you are as accurate as possible in putting your personal information on these ballots.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that people have been concerned about with absentee voting is the amount of rejection of ballots. And I think that has been expounded upon at length. The reality is voting by mail is very easy and very simple, but oftentimes people forget to sign their ballot. Or just don't fill it out completely. So taking the time and being precise and ensuring that you actually sign your ballot is important.
And can we change our voting address online during this process?
Yes, you actually can. I think you can update your registration status online and make sure that it's that both your ballot and your just registration status can be changed depending on if you've recently moved.
And I'm not sure about Georgia. I know Florida has changed the eligibility for felons to vote. Is that the same in Georgia?
I'm actually not sure about Georgia's reenfranchisement rules. In Florida, yes, they recently passed an initiative that allows formerly incarcerated folks to actually vote. There have been quite a few back and forths around it about whether they're actually going to have that right come November. But I'm not actually sure what the rules are in Georgia around reenfranchisement.
Okay, so it's imperative on citizens to actually check that early, as early as possible.
Absolutely. Any information about your registration status or your polling place or what's on the ballot or what to expect and when early vote is, I think arming yourself with as much information as possible is critical, especially this election cycle.
Okay, Ms. McBride, can you provide us with a website, an informational website that citizens can go to?
Sure. You can go to voterregistration.org. There are also other sites. I think vote.org can give you information about your registration status and whether or not you can vote absentee in your state.
Excellent. Excellent. I, I don't have any further questions. You've been kind of like thorough in this
Okay.
this very short meeting that we've had, but we imparted a lot of information, and I really thank you for taking the time to join us here on the WCEG Network. This is valuable information. For those of you who are listening and perhaps want to refer this information to your friends or family, this program and Ms. McBride will be available on YouTube shortly after this broadcast. And you can pick it up anytime, and we keep this archived, particularly going to be running it back and forth between now and Election Day. And Ms. Manchester, we thank you so much, and the voter Center for Voter Registration for really imparting some very useful and important information to our listeners and
Yeah, thank you so
watchers.
much for having me. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, take care.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we just like to emphasize to you that voting is so important. And we don't want you to be, we want you to be vigilant about this year, about voting. We want you to be vigilant about voting every year. Uh, Very important things are in the in play when you vote and who you vote for. Uh, all the presidents, once they take office, they appoint judges. They appoint appellate judges. They appoint federal judges. They support Supreme Court justices. And that may not sound important to you, but these are the people that you face, or your family may face, or your friends or your neighbors may face for criminal prosecutions, for uh, civil redresses, uh, anything that involves the court system, from family court to criminal court to the Supreme Court. Very important. And I talked about this so many months ago on one of our earlier programs about voter suppression and voter registration. And just a few points that I would like to make is that you have to be wary, and some of you younger people may not be wary of the fact that the Voter Registration Act of 1965 was gutted recently, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court. And so what's happening now is we have before us the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and that's going to be going through Congress and through the Senate very shortly, and it will probably not be resolved before the current election. And if you value your right to vote, then it's incumbent upon you not to just vote for the president of the United States, but also to vote for your state and local representatives, and specifically your congressional representatives and your Senate representatives in the U.S. Senate. And if you have a chance to question them or to meet them, you need to question them about their stance on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Because what is happening is there is not just here in the South, but throughout the country, voter suppression is going on. And that voter suppression is emanating even from the highest office in our country. As you see, there's a lot of confusion that is done purposely, designed to frustrate people into not voting. It's designed, they're trying to confuse the electorate. That's you. And the idea of it all is for you to abandon your right to vote or to misuse it. And you cannot be foolish enough to be led by, this is my opinion, the Kanye West of this world, who are trying to dilute your power. Voting is power. And as I've said before on this network, that if voting wasn't so important, and if your individual vote was not so important, why were they lynching people? Why are they trying to suppress your right to vote right now? Why are they closing polling places in certain areas to make it difficult for people to vote? That is because your vote is powerful, it's valuable, and they know it. They know it. And the more that they can, effort that they can put into successfully frustrating people and making them less likely to vote or to vote for people who have absolutely no chance of getting into office. Uh, if you remember last election in 2016, the people who, after Senator Sanders lost the primary, the people who supported him absolutely abandoned the Democratic Party. And to show their frustration, they either some of them voted for the Republican candidate, some of them voted for cartoon characters, and a significant number of them just did not vote. And I posted on my own Facebook page uh, every other month or every 2 or 3 months that in the 2016 election, 43 million eligible voters did not vote. 43 million eligible voters did not vote. And you know what? Those voters, they stepped on the blood of the lynched people who fought for the right to vote. They spit on the graves of people who died so they could vote. This is abhorrent. It is so un American. It is so unthankful, ungrateful. And what you have is those 43 million people could have changed things. They could have made things better. We would not be going through some of the absolutely inhuman things that we've seen take place in these United States. That if you're listening to the political conventions, you're not hearing. And this is why we're having the march on Washington right now, because not just because of the shootings that have been happening of and the killings of unarmed black men, but because the rights of the people have been trampled upon. And that demonstration in celebration of the 57th anniversary of the original March on Washington, uh, led by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, that march is important. We all need to be watching. It's currently on television. We all need to be paying attention to the words of the speakers, and that march, that effort should be the impetus for even the most lazy of us to get up off our butts and vote. There is no excuse for not voting. We've just had a special guest on our program, Miss Marissa McBride from the Center for uh, Voter Information, the Center for Voter Information, imparting to you about the fact that they're mailing out in the state of Georgia 2.2 million ballot applications for people who, for whatever reason, feel like it's dangerous for them to go vote. Because there is a danger. We're under the worst pandemic that this world has seen in 100 years. So they are not just sending out ballot applications in Georgia, they're sending them out all across the country because this moment in history is so very, very important. And there should not be one of you, not one of you, who will not take advantage this year of your right to vote. It is so very, very important. I cannot emphasize it enough. I know at some point I'm repeating myself over and over, but when we have 43 million people who didn't vote in the last election, and even now I hear or see posted on Facebook people who still disparage our right and our privilege to vote. Uh, it's sad, and a lot of this a lot of this misinformation is coming over from foreign countries, even that's been proven. But you also have operatives in the Republican Party who really don't want to see African Americans turn out in great numbers to vote. They also want to confuse you and make you forget about some of the statements they have made, some of the actions they have taken, and what they have done is unprecedentedly, they have marched out African American supporters during this convention. In fact, I thought the most disgraceful was a deputy to the president that no one has seen until yesterday, that no one knew about until a couple of days ago. Who was he? What does he do? And to me, his only purpose was to march out and confuse you, to make you, the uninformed people, the people who have not been paying attention to the policies and practices over the past 3 years, to cause you to say, well, you know what, maybe he's not so bad. Maybe we don't really have to vote. I don't see any difference between uh, Biden and Trump. They're both two old men. What's the difference? And to quote Donald Trump's favorite line, what have you got to lose? Well, I tell you, did you see what you lost when you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton? Or did you see what you lost by just not voting the last election? It's important. There's always, always a better choice, no matter who's running. There's always a better choice. And it's up to you, it's up to us to exercise that right to vote. Ever since I came out of the military, I realized how important my right to vote was, and I have voted in every election, save one where I was so sick I couldn't get out of bed. And this is before absentee ballot. Well, the absentee ballot would not have helped me. I was down and out with the flu, and just couldn't even get out of bed to go vote. Out of my 75 years, that is the one time that I did not vote. Voting is so important, and there are so few excuses that are relevant. So we'd like to thank you for listening to Issues and Answers Special Edition on the WCEG Network. We're reminding you to exercise your right to vote. You are important. Your influence counts. Use it. Thank you and good day.